Thanks for joining me on this lovely, lovely Friday morning. I'm excited to be here. I'm excited we're together. For all the social media world out there and all the people that are going to watch this video, I was just going to share with them how we know each other. Actually met after college, looking for my first job. I'll never forget it. And I'd gone to Career Center ETA and I saw this. I was like, I'm going to give this a shot. I did. They said the interview and here comes Beth Janelle. I'll never
Beth
forget
Janelle
it.
back then.
You were you were the first one to interview me. That's right, right?
I think I was in my second year. I think it was only
I remember that day.
College interviewing you to take my job. There's a little irony, and we should say that was at a CPA firm. Not exactly the way it works today, but
that's right. That's right. Yeah. 1993.
That was a long time ago.
30 years in 6 months.
Luckily, I found my way into forensic accounting, which at that time had become a profession that you could get into with accounting degree and having a CPA license. It wasn't that way when we came out of school. For the last 20 years, I've been doing all kinds of white collar and fraud and corruption investigations and compliance work to help organizations remediate things that allow them to get into trouble. So yeah, so I sort of lucked into finding it, but it's a good thing that I did. So I actually went to college to get a graphic design degree, so I have an artistic side to my brain, and so being stuck in the auto world
in recent years,
I'm much more happy in forensics because I get to apply the creative side, professionally.
Who knew? Analytical person. I've had to really, actually in my real estate career, I've had to tap in a little bit into my creativity, and I've been grateful for that because.
Well, you've been doing great with it though. So watching some of your videos you've been doing, they're fun to watch. So
thanks for that.
You're doing great. Yeah.
You just a little background. You've lived overseas growing up in Indonesia, and then you came here and went to college.
Yes.
And of course, got your CPA, went to school, got your CPA license, and then forensics. But you also had a chance to move back overseas.
I did. Yeah. I grew up in the Middle East and Southeast Asia. So Indonesia was the last place that I lived. I graduated all of my grade schooling outside of the US, and always wanted to have the opportunity to work back in Asia. It's my favorite part of the world. And so when I had the opportunity several years ago, I was in Hong Kong for almost 6 years until last December. So
that takes courage. But maybe it's different for you because you grew up over there. But for someone who grew up in the United States to do that, that would take quite a bit of courage to leave family and friends here and going to Hong Kong.
Yeah, that's true. But growing up the way that I did, just sort of used to living away from extended family and not having those deep relationships with them. And you make friends wherever you go. So, for me, it's like I sort of have a transient spirit and actually struggle a bit more living in the US. And that just goes back to, pop culture from our generation when we were growing up, American pop culture. I didn't experience that directly. And my sorority sisters in college taught me the Pledge of Allegiance, right? So for me, like coming this way actually sometimes is more culture shock than.
Talk about step into your brave.
Yes.
And your journey on how you got to this point with the book and then tell us a little bit how you reached a point that you decided that writing your story was important.
Okay. So writing my story became important to me for two reasons. So part of it is the healing journey that I've been on. So a little over 2 years ago, I had a life-altering event that happened to me, and it was sort of the gateway for me to a very intense and focused healing journey that I've been on the last over 2 years now. And it just came time for me to deal with trauma, some abuse and emotional neglect that I've suffered in my lifetime.
Can you tell us a little bit more about that event?
The event itself, the gateway event, sure.
Right.
So it was a hypnotherapy session. And I went into it naively. Actually, it's sort of the type of therapy that you go to, like if you want to lose weight or you want to quit smoking.
Right. My husband did that. Therapy to quit smoking. And
it works. But that's not why I didn't. So the reason that I went in is I've been talking to my doctor, actually my medical doctor, about I was struggling a little bit with relationships. So like really connecting deeply with people, and I'd taken on a new role at work, a leadership role, for our practice in Asia that I was in. And so it required me to connect with the team in a deeper and more authentic way, but also our clients. And I've always struggled with that. And what I experienced was one of the most terrifying and traumatic things that I've ever been through in my life, but it brought together some puzzle pieces in my mind about my past and a nightmare that I'd been having for a while, and some facts that had started to come out of my family about things, some familial, just sort of generational familial abuse that had been occurring in our family for a long time. And so all of that started to weave together with my own experience. And it was like an epiphany, like, right. Oh, this is what all of that means. And then, that sort of opened up the healing process. So,
right.
But the book, how that came to be. So, I went on as I said, a very intense and focused healing process from that point in time, and just like gobbling up everything that was coming to me to help myself from where I was at that point. Because
let me just ask one little probing question.
Sure. Yeah,
you said you went to this hypnotherapy because you weren't you were needing to make some more deeper connections at work. So somebody triggered you to understand this, or you just came to the realization?
It's just a feeling I've always had. So, really connecting with people at a deep level, and being authentic to myself and being true to myself, being vulnerable. I've always struggled with that. But part of that, I have to say, is because I now understand, because I didn't really know who I was. I didn't know myself. And that was just sort of the manifestation of my survivorship, and how I survived through my life for most of my life, was just to bury myself and allow everybody else. I'm a classic caretaker, right? So I would bury myself to take care of everybody else around. It's the rare exception like you, but I think that has a little bit to do with the fact that there is some similarity in our past, particularly with relationships, right? You've experienced trauma yourself. So, and that's one of the reasons why you and I became so close, because we were experiencing some of that at the same time, right? Figure out what happened to you and to understand some of what was going on. So there's a lot of writing involved in that as well. And so that started to pour out my story. I reconnected with April Adams Pertuis, who was one of my sorority sisters. Little sister was her big sister. So we're kind of like in that even closer family within the sorority. So her business is to help primarily women tell their stories. And that her business is called Light Beamers. So that's what she's doing. She's helping people to tell their stories, to shed light in the world. That's what she's doing. And the personal aspect of it is either helping you to tell your story if you want to write it or you want to speak it. And
lightbeamers.com, right?
Lightbeamers.com.
I think she does have a Facebook page as well, right?
Got a Facebook page and a website, and she's on LinkedIn. So she's everywhere these days.
April, what is her last name?
April Adams. The last name is Pertuis. Yeah, Pertuis. Yeah. Yes. Last summer, I reached out to her and I was like, hey, I want you to work with me on teaching me how to tell my story. And so I spent a private day session with her, and we did some work on the story. It's the first time she'd heard my story. And it was like word vomit. I was like, everything, like so much was pouring out of me. And she was like, no way, because she had me in the category of sort of this, very put together, structured, professional individual that I am, the person that I am on the outside. And she had no idea what I was going to tell her that was in the inside of me, right? And that's, a lot of this is in the book, which I think most people who are going to read my story are going to have the same reaction. So one of the very first things that I did after I had the hypnotherapy session, so I had two really great friends in Hong Kong who the first two people that I told about what was going on, like, you really need to get some help, like professional help. Right. A lot more than just that. So I found my trauma therapist and a support group in Hong Kong.
Journey from the hypnotherapist to the book, like, and how you actually went about getting the therapy is a big deal for people to hear, because first of all, people like if you think you need a counselor or therapist, just reaching out to anyone is difficult. People are intimidated by that process and really sometimes don't know where to start. And
Yeah.
so I think that's that part of your story is, I think, helps the people I hear here watching this interview. That is a big deal. And I think it's important
It
for
is a
people to
big deal.
understand it can happen. And
Right. I mean, it is, I mean, you are in despair. So for me, I mean,
yeah,
when I was looking for my trauma therapist, and by the way, that's how, so I knew what to search, because always before I'd just been going to therapy. Right. And so this time I knew I actually needed a trauma therapist. And so that's what I was focusing on, was the trauma piece. I had never associated the word trauma with myself before 2 years ago. Right. So,
that's
and
a
I
good
never
point. It
like
wasn't
that, you know, so that got me to my trauma therapist. And then it also got me to the support group in Hong Kong, which is called Talk Hong Kong, which
it's excellent. It's an excellent story. And I'm so proud of you, Beth. Like this is a big deal. And I'm so proud of you, because let me just say, like I know for me, you know, the victim mentality is something we always want to stay away from. And so I think what happens is when you're trying to address trauma or address whatever these things that happen in your background, you're like, well, I don't want to be a victim. I don't want to have this victim. But so there's a fine line, is all I'm saying. I feel like there's a fine line.
Yeah, no, I think you're right about that. And what I would say about that is that I was a victim in the moment when those events happened, because somebody else with power over me chose to take advantage of me. So in that moment, I was a victim. But after that, I was a survivor. You know, like I'm you know, also next Tuesday when the book launches, I'm also launching my own personal website, right? And my tagline there for my website is heal, which for me means hope, evolve, and love. And that really, for me, summarizes what the healing process is about, is getting to a place where I'm not just surviving, but I'm thriving. And there's a great survivorship, but that's where I'm headed, to thrive in my life, to find joy, to find happiness, and to really find love, the ability to give and to receive real love, true love, from all sources that we actually, you know, we get. I mean, I get love from you, right? I mean, that's one of my greatest gifts, is the friendships, my close friendships, and, you know, the support that we have for each other, and the giving and receiving of love that we have.
Let's take our last few minutes here, and I want you to talk specifically about what the book, so the book itself, and like the launch date's coming up, like give us the details and what the book and all how what it's doing to give back to our community.
One of the things I really love about this project is it is women supporting women. So the book will be available starting next Tuesday, October 25th, and it will be available on Amazon. It will be the only place that you'll be able to purchase the book. And the reason for that is that all of the royalties from each book sale will go to an organization called kiva.org. And so that's KIVA. You can go and check it out. Kiva is an organization that funds microloans for women in underserved communities. That money sits there in perpetuity to continue to help women as they, you know, need funding to help them along with whatever they're doing in their own small businesses. So it's really, really a wonderful.
It is fantastic. That is just fantastic.
Yeah, that we're doing this for. So it's great. It's
what an amazing way to allow women to tell their stories, and like you're saying, the opening up this whole new world for you by telling your story and addressing the trauma you suffered as a child, and
now doing good with it,
and giving back to these women who are in need and are trying to create new lives for themselves too. This is just amazing. It's fantastic, and the story is awesome.
Thank you. I mean, this time of year that they're coming out, I mean, it's a great, you know, it's a great holiday gift if you know people, and not, you know, I mean, it's a good idea. A great holiday gift. It's just a good read, and the stories, you know, everybody's stories are very, very inspiring. They're all really great stories. So hey, thanks for having me on. It's really fun to do this video with you.
And this is amazing, and I love you so much.
I love you too. Thanks, Diane.
You are so welcome, Beth. Have a great day.